give it just one more minute and give these people time to get in, and then we will get started. Look at those numbers. How exciting. Okay. Sabrina and Mark, can you continue to let people in through the lobby? I'll go ahead and start so we won't delay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks so much. All right. Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to the fourth annual Geology and Minerals Training Office Winter Webinar Series. If this is your first time here, welcome, and we hope you will return in the subsequent weeks. If
Hello, Gayla, you're muted.
I've said so many great welcoming things, but at any rate, here we go again. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Geology and Minerals Training Office Winter Webinar Series. This is our fourth annual webinar series. If this is your first time, welcome, and we hope you will return in subsequent weeks. And if this is old hat to you, we thank you for returning and engaging in this learning opportunity with us. This year's theme is geology and our economy. And we have just a few logistics to cover. As you know, everyone knows the button usage within Teams. We ask that you will keep your microphones muted throughout the presentation. And but our presenter has asked that as many of you are able, will you please keep your cameras on for the duration of the event? If the speaker so desires, he will ask for questions throughout, but we generally will hold questions until the end. We will bank them for you, and then we will ask them during a 10 or 12-minute question and answer period right at the end of the presentation. If he wants to make adjustments to that plan, then that's at his discretion. So throughout his life, Sean Wheelock had often been accused of having his head in the clouds. Thus, when he started his PhD at the University of Arizona, he decided to show them all just how down to earth he really was and became a planetary hydrogeologist specializing in Mars QED. In order to get boots on the ground, he kept volunteering to take a one-way trip, but NASA had numerous nonsensical notions about research ethics and such. In time, he decided that Mars wasn't quite strange enough and that nothing could top working for a bear. Smokey claimed Sean as his own 13 years ago, and the self-professed water geek has been on the Lassen ever since. The work he is presenting today took 11 of those years to complete. So we look forward to hearing you share, and thank you. And Sean, it's in your hands.
Thank you. So is my video actually working? It's giving me something kind of strange. All right. And you see my little friend? He's the boss. And yes, this is in the space station. They had a little partnership with NASA a few years ago, and that's the way they announced it. So anyway, rule number one of having a happy life, don't take yourself too seriously, right? So thank you so much for everyone that's here. And let me reiterate what she said. I used to teach, and I really need to see eyes, if for no other reason, if I to know if I've completely lost people. Um, and these days, it's just like if I'm staring into a great digital abyss of despair, and during the pandemic, it's like, oh, there's people, not all alone in the world. So thank you. So let's see. Let me start my slides here. So I'm the district hydrologist on the Hat Creek district of the Lassen, here in northeastern California. And let me share the screen here. One of the strangest things I've discovered through the years is everything in Teams makes perfect sense and works just fine until the moment you're presenting. And then everything goes cuckoo. Oh, they just went away. Hold on.
Sean, we can see your screen.
Okay, well, I can't see any of you anymore. Or is that the plan? So you could be all like, yeah, we're looking at you, Sean. Our cameras are on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, there we go. So
Also,
my
feel free to use your reaction buttons throughout. Don't know how I forgot to mention that.
yeah, and I'm the way I have things here, I'm not gonna see those. So
Sean, did you want it in presentation mode?
which is that? I was just gonna share my screen like this.
If you, yeah. Uh-huh. Exactly that.
Yep.
Perfect.
And let me set my clock. All right. If I don't set a clock, who knows what happens, right? Okay, we are good. So, welcome. Thank you for coming. I appreciate that I'm the first speaker. Hopefully your monitor will make it through the whole time. I've told folks that I made one promise about this talk, which is you'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll throw farm fresh produce. And since this is digital, you can't hit me. So, and maybe by the end of the seminar series, your monitor might have a few splotches. And oh, that's my PhD advisor. Right now, that's always nice. So basins CFLR snow monitoring. Now, the real name of the project is, can one of you make sure he's able to get in? Looks like it's kind of tripping up for some reason. Thank you. All right. So I surnamed the best laid plans of mice and men. We had a lot of plans and we were all just thrilled at how great they were. Let's see here. And my keyword's not advancing. All right. Oh, okay, cool. He's in. So CFLR, CFLRA, CFLRP, lots of letters floating around. We're the government after all, right? And kid you not, I have had so many people say, huh, which is it? What is it? What are you even talking about? And so this is a collaborative forest landscape restoration. There was an act which established the program. It was founded by Congress in 2009. It's not just a neat and keen Forest Service idea, but actually part of congressional law in 2009, the Omnibus Lands Act. And so what the program was is an attempt to take more of a holistic all lands approach, because fires were just starting to get worse, resources were ever stretched, and things just weren't working that well. So this was an attempt to respond. It was a collaborative program, meaning that forests cannot apply on their own. They have to do so as part of a larger collaborative group, or not at all. And that was a little different. When the announcements came out, we're like, oh, wait, are you trying to tell us we need people? And so it was a different paradigm. It's an interesting program. It's an all lands approach, not just federal, because they had this stunning realization that, water doesn't stop at boundaries. It's not just like wildlife is not very impressed by the sign saying leaving National Forest System lands now. And the program was designed to sort of leverage resources from timber companies, from ranchers, from everyone, with this goal, this nexus of benefiting the community, of course, lowering fire danger, all the good things like that. And it was also different than a lot of congressionally established programs because it had a monitoring mandate baked into it. So, how's that for a acronym? I won't tell you just what we started calling that internally. Yeah, it actually stands for Bernie Hat Creek Community Forest and Watershed Group. This was our collaborative. It was established by Fall River Resource Conservation District. And those are sort of these things we have in California that are like semi-public, just for bringing lots of different people together. And the reason that our RAC started doing this, the RCD started doing this work is there was an opportunity for some secure rural schools funds or RAC funds. And it's like the community pulled together saying, how should we use these? What should we do? And the collaboration was working so well, they started looking forward and put in a proposal for the CFLR program. So that is our background. So, it's the Bernie Hat Creek Basins Project, and I'm just going to call it the Basins Project. Unless you really want to hear me saying a lot of words that mean nothing, and then I'd just be a politician, right? So I got thumbs up. Yes. So this landscape for which we applied, nearly 400,000 acres, one of the lowest CFLRs when it comes to federal ownership. And even that was between Forest Service, Lassen Volcanic National Park, even some BLM land, BIA land. And this is right at the southern end of the Lassen, of the Cascade Volcanic Province, but it's also the Lassen Volcanic Center. And just totally wacko geology. The Great Basin comes in there. It's the Cascades, the Sierra and Batholith stops right there. It's just this wonderful mess. And it's in northeastern California. Pretty much mid-elevation forests. Our monitoring site average 1650 meters. And fairly dry, 1053 millimeters annually. The record since 1954. 72% forested. This is primarily Sierra and mixed conifer. So you have your, white fir taking over everything, and you have, all this other things. But one of the most important things in forests like this is your fire adapted species. Like sugar pines, and you have different pines with better genetics and all these things that I try not to worry about, that I just go to the foresters for. And in 1883, according to the General Land Office notes, 50% of the trees were fire adapted. And today, 30%, and falling rapidly. There's pretty much a plague of white firs. They're now over half the trees. And so, wait, did you say monitoring mandate? Ooh, does that mean science? All right, I see some hands. Exactly. We get to do some science along with our management, and it is, it's monitoring and adaptive monitoring, so it's very applied questions, which is some of my favorite type of research. But if you use the R word, turns out grants and agreements gets nervous and tells you you can't do that. Took some very weird writing to convince grants and agreements it wasn't research, and universities administrators it was research, and yay for bureaucracy. So I talked to the our collaborative group. I said, what question's most important to you? I was heading up the hydrologic monitoring. What do you guys want to know? And this is what they said: can downstream flows be augmented through timber harvest? You may have heard, but California has a little bit of a drought. And just to give you some perspective, this is nothing weird or unusual for California. California has 50-year droughts. 1150, the big drought that, coincident with the collapse of the Chaco civilization in the Southwest. And, that was a 50-year drought. So even before climate change, drought is real. And when they divided up the Colorado River water between the states, they did it off of 3 flood years. So there's never enough, even without drought. In any case, can we augment flows by cutting trees? But I respond, before we can get to that question, first we would need to determine which treatments retain the most water on the landscape. And then once you know that, then you can start poking around at the more complex, higher level question. So why is that the question they asked? It's more than just we want water. National forest, this is the economics, right? Economics and geology. I listened. National forests cover 20% of California, yet produce 65% of our water supply. Pictured, this is Shasta Lake, the biggest reservoir in the state, just down the hill from me, and that is Mount Shasta in the background. I can see it from my house. This is a very nice place to live. Keep in mind, this budget includes groundwater. And one of the sad truths about groundwater is we're mining it. This is significant overdrafting, and we're getting subsidence all over the place. And So it's even with that water budget, it's 65%. So you can't really overstate its importance. So what's the value? Money. Currently, 9.5 billion. And rising quickly. That number is like 6 or 7 years old. It's probably much higher now. So the dream, I probably more of an impossible dream. But that's why we do science. I was at a conference and I had a forest supervisor of one of the southern Sierran forest, ask me a question. He wanted to know if I could give him a cute equation. He's very politically adept. And he's like, if you can give me something, Sean, I can go fundraise. I can get the money I need to treat our forest. Why? Well, how about some math? We have millions of acres lost to catastrophic wildfire every year. You may have seen some of those on the news. We have insufficient funds for forest treatments. And we have lots of wealthy cities that are desperate for water. San Francisco, LA, San Diego. Those are just the big money bags. And you may have heard a saying, first rule of hydrology in California is water flows uphill towards power and money. It's true. And so if treatment equals more water plus less fire, there's the Golden State, 1848, lots of gold. You have Smoky. So that's what people want. And, so I see her going, yeah, it's a very complex system. You gotta have some real expectations here. It'd be great. And I can wave my hands and dance all I want, but I'm a scientist. I gotta answer the question with science. So with this question, with this background established, I started looking for areas that we had recently harvested. Due to the time we had, we couldn't say, okay, well, let's harvest this unit. For those not in the Forest Service, you'll be shocked to know we don't move that fast. And we can't even get a timber operator to cut a stand when we want it cut, usually. It's just, so we had to find something that was just cut. And so we found 3 stands, a thin stand, and the things on it, all the arrows, that's a figure from the manuscript, just talking about our conceptual model. And I'm not gonna get into that now just because of time. But so we had thin stands, just a basic diversity thin. And then we had, turns out, what's properly called a seed cut. We were calling them group selections. Basically, 1 to 2 hectare openings. Most of the trees taken out, except you'll leave the large trees with the best genetics to be a seed source. And then we kept a control, doing science. And so that said, we put together a team and flew people down and, walked around in the beautiful geology here and tried to stay focused on the problem instead of all the scenery. I mean, if you haven't been here, it is gorgeous. Yeah, and so we instrumented the site. This is a look across the seed cut. And in the background here, you can see, it's one of our solar panels and, some micromet things, they're the standard 2 meters and rainfall capture buckets and all that good stuff. And we have soil moisture meters. And the problem with having soil moisture meters down down a meter is you have to really do some gymnastics to get them in place. So the products, when we started this, when I put the proposal in, I told everyone this is what we're going to do. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't have given me money. So this is the manuscript that it was just published in October, and that's what I'm going to be presenting. And if you're wondering why I keep doing this, it's because all your faces are on this monitor. So, so it's the teaching instincts, like, looking at the faces. And the second product is going to be a Forest Service General Technical Report. It's going to include this paper and then a few chapters on the things that didn't fit into the manuscript and things like that. So here is the site that we had chosen. This is just a 1 meter LiDAR, give you an idea of the topography. This is on, so this is, Southern Cascades volcanics, it's extrusive. I mean, this is like a lot of tuff, just spat out of a volcano. Soils are coarse. They're young, very, very porous. Here they're sandy loams. And you walk a bit and you get a bit of variety. You may actually find loamy sands as opposed to sandy loams. Yeah. And exactly. So I'm going to advance through the different maps here, and the image that's on the left is going to go to the right, just so that way if you don't see it, you're not lost. So here's the LiDAR of the site. And this is the boundary of the timber unit. And so this is what it looked like in 2010 before any timber harvest. Oops, again, this is just mixed Sierra and conifer. At this side, it's about 60% white fir. So we are trying to raise the population of pines. We had my pointer point? No, well, so, these are the seed cuts, the group selections. And the green here, those are our control areas. And the rest of it is just this diversity thin. And this is what it looked like post-harvest in 2012. And again, this CFLR started 2011, and we had instruments out on the ground in 2012 for a proof of concept. And then the really good data acquisition started in 2013. So, now that you've seen the trees, just pull into a basic diagram. And so this line here on the screen, that is a really cool instrument. It's one of the reasons I recruited folks from the University of Nevada, Dr. Scott Tyler, is there's a National Science Foundation funded center there about using these fiber optic cables that have thermocouples every meter. Because this area has always been under a snowpack. And, when you're doing the hydrology of snow, it is called ripening through the season. It comes up to the same temperature, then when it starts melting, you get temperature changes along the bottom of the pack. So you string out a kilometer of cable with these thermocouples. It's really cool technology, and it gives you a lot of information about the base of the snowpack. So we did that. We established these monitoring stations with soil moisture meters and micromet towers. We did some heat flux, and we thought we were all peachy keen. Winter of 2012, 2013, got snow, everything worked. It was beautiful. So as I was saying, the fiber optic cable, snow stakes, all your basic micrometeorological parameters, and of course, understory density, your vegetation surveys. So we were feeling pretty good about life. Wouldn't it be funny if it would stop snowing? We joked nervously. Yeah, best laid plans. Here is the U.S. Drought Monitor Index for Shasta County. 2000, my pointer's not working, so you just have to imagine. 2012 to 2013 was a great winter. Everything worked. And then, yeah, lots of drought. There's a study duration right there. Hilarious. Just great. So this is the dendrochronology basal area index series that we took for 21 trees within the 3 treatment areas, and the harvest was right there in 2011. There's our study period. So, and here's our drought readings. We had extremes of precipitation. We had our exceptional drought, D4, the highest rating. 2016 did not even get any snow in most of the forest. It was that bad. And then 2017, we had near record precip and flooding. I was racing around the forest, in a vehicle, like what flooded, what do we need sandbags? What am I worried about right now? And the next year we were pretty much average. So, and again, this is all right during our study duration. So turned out to be a very unique data set. We were not anticipating that. We were expecting snow. But instead, we got something that is quite useful. So this is actually not just a niche project anymore, because most mid-elevation forests in the West are transitioning from snow-dominated to rain-dominated precip as they warm. And these areas that have classically had snowpacks now have smaller or none. They may come and go, which is what happened in a few years here. And there aren't a lot of studies of these systems. And so Ashpan monitoring site actually turns out to be very representative. We didn't plan this. Ashpan, go figure, right? Just, it's all volcanics, and so the big picture here, though, as we all know too well, is water stores are being depleted earlier in the year. And, because they're small to begin with. And that means This is the Dixie Fire 2020. Nearly 1 million acres. Second, well, it's the largest single fire in California state history. It comes in second to the August complex, which was just the year before. And this was 2 miles from our site. We thought we were going to lose the site. And so that slide puts it all in perspective, right? And one of the main thrusts of the CFLR program happens to be mitigating fire risk. So here we have our beautiful search. You know, our snow things are right there at the top. And yeah, that's why they call it research, right? So when we started seeing the problems we were having, we added a dendrochronology basal area index set. We added sap flow sensors to ponderosa pine trees. We even you kind of drill into the roots and you suck water out, and then you do the isotopic, the water isotopes of it between 018 and 016. And we even did that. And so those essentially were our trying to make things work without snow. And so the variables that I put up here in a sans font, those are not discussed in the manuscript. So, we did get a small and useful snow data set, but since it ended up being such a small part of the story, that's going to go in the GTR. Okay. So this is what we had before. And we have our sap flow sensors. And we have all of our veg plots. And I can put the dendrochronology on there, but it's 21 trees throughout the whole site. So one of the great things about this project is it has an absolutely revolting amount of statistics. The first author on the journal article is someone I hired, a young scientist who was just like really good at computational statistics. It's like, that's what we need on the team. And, he brought so much to it that we decided, and he was young in his career, that we'd put him first. And we have a really great team. And it was actually kind of funny because our soil scientist, as soon as we read this article, he made a joke about, looking up some word. And then he's all, what I did not look up, and this giant, half-page statistic thing. It's pretty gross. But what you have here is I wish my pointer worked. But so this is the time series analysis for soil moisture. It's, we used an integrated value. We had sensors at 1 meter, 50 centimeters, and 20 centimeters below surface. And so these are the time series for each of the three stands, which is, it's really one stand. It's on one slope, homogeneous soils, same aspect, holding everything else constant, because this is a monitoring study. You didn't have the resources for massive replication. So we held everything constant. So we call them stands, but they're really pieces of the same stand. But so there's our time series for the soil moisture. The control on top, then the thinned in the middle, and the seed coat at the bottom. And just glancing at it without my pointer, I mean, you can see that there's definite differences between things. And these sites are within several hundred meters of each other. Well, you remember that big line? That line is 1 kilometer. So, and then at the bottom, you can see, the bars are the ET, and the lines are our precept. So, lots of gross statistics. And one of the most important things we found, though, with that particular data set was this integrated soil moisture value I was talking about. So here, these are the really our best 4 years of data. 2016 was the year in which there was no snow, period, on most of the forest. 2017 was the flooding year. And 2014, 2015 were drought. So, and it turns out that critters love cables. They're just like, it's just like their candy. It's like, ooh, what's that? I'm going to chew through it. I mean, we even had a bear disassemble one of our sap flow sensors. I was just like, really? I mean, claw holes in the insulation and all the good stuff. So again, on this, the green is the control, the brown is the thinned, and the orange is the seed cut. And so when you look at these soil decline data, there's 3 things that are important. You have your initiation time, and again, this is just the season on the bottom. It's not, basically Julian day. You have initiation time. You have the rate of drying. And then you have your final value at the end of the season. And the way things are going these days, the final value really means a lot, because that's what you have, when the fires go through. So at this point, I'm just going to give findings, because there's not a lot of time left. And if you want to drill into these a bit more, I mean, please look at the manuscript. We put a lot of work into
We're
it.
right at about 7 minutes until Q&A.
Oh, I had 9 minutes and 15 seconds. But okay.
Okay, we can have a little shorter Q&A.
Okay.
That's okay.
So both prescriptions had a modest and predictable impact on micrometeorology, your normal stuff, lower nighttime temperatures, everything you'd expect. And not surprisingly, the initiation of soil moisture decline depends on how much rain you get, how many trees you get. Duh, right? So we had 4 sets of key findings. Except for shortwave radiation, the difference in the magnitude of the changes between the seed cut and the thinning prescription was relatively small. That is funky. We were not expecting that. What that means is reducing the density to 15% of the pre-existing had largely the same impact as reducing it to less than 2%. That's not expected. And so the implication of that is that, the hydrology and micrometeorology of Southern Cascades coniferous forests may not vary linearly in proportion to taking trees out. Again, complex systems. I can't give you an equation for fundraising. Key finding 2. In the thinned and control stands, the amount of soil moisture left within our top meter was very similar. That's interesting. Yet, removing almost all the remaining trees in the seed cut caused the moisture to increase substantially. So that, keep in mind, this is you have feedbacks here with micrometeorology and wind. You have your 1 hectare seed cut. You're getting more ET in it because of wind flow and no shading and things like that. Key finding 3: soil moisture decline. Both treatments delayed the decline, and at the end of the season, we had more water in each of them. So forestry works. Surprise, right? If we didn't see that, then I might not be so forthright with sharing these results with folks. Forestry does work. Now, this is interesting. The onset of decline was strongly tied to the magnitude of winter precipitation.
Yeah, to get more snow.
So during dry years, your decline begins much earlier within the control versus the treated stands. And that's kind of to be expected because the control, it's warmer. The trees turn on earlier in the season. But here's the catch. When the trees start using that water, when they turn on earlier, if there's no snow to fill it back up, they deplete it all earlier in the season. Yet during wet years, the storage capacity is filled back up by the snow. It's basically an ancillary storage reservoir. And that is a really important result for wildfire risk because it's warmer, your trees turn on earlier, there's no snow to replenish the soil moisture, and so you reach your end of season minimum or even the wilt point, let's see, in April, right at the beginning of fire season instead of, say, August. Key finding 4 in our seed cuts. Yes, over the period of the study, we did see more soil moisture. Now, keep in mind, we planted seedlings in this area. The idea was just to do standard forestry practices. So just like we would in any other stand, we planted the seedlings in 2013. And if you look at the data, you can see, the effects of the seedlings start taking up water. And as well, the remaining trees start to use the liberated water. Takes a few seasons for the roots to grow. I mean, that's been seen in other studies all over the West. But here's the kicker. While the higher evaporative potential does not affect integrated soil moisture appreciably, it could cause fuels to dry out more rapidly. You have the wind, for instance, and that would increase both the risk of an ignition and the rate of spread of any start. And I might add, with a hectare opening and eddying at the sides and fun little micromet stuff, considering that one of the primary methods of spread of wildfire is spotting, firebrands being carried on wind, this is a result that bears thinking about. So, preview. you know, what I seem to be saying here is that, these 1 to 2 hectare openings are probably too big. And coincidentally, a lot of recent work on the silviculture front has been saying the same thing. And so a lot of silviculturists are starting to look at sort of this skipping gaps approach. And so could folks please mute their microphones? Thank you. So, preview. So if you look at this blue oval here, this is along our fiber optic line. So there's snow data there. We also have a game camera pointed at a snow stake. So we have a picture time series that we can do photogrammetry on. And look at the openings there along those lines. Those are smaller openings versus the big red. Those are the seed cuts. So so as part of the GTR, we're going to look at this data and compare. There's a micromet station right there too, the little red flag. So as part of the GTR, we're going to compare that with what we were seeing in the seed cuts. So concluding points. We showed that forest thinning can be effectively used to enhance summer soil moisture storage in the basin's project area. We are going as part, working up the other data sets, the ones I mentioned that, aren't in the manuscript. In the GTR, we're also going to put management recommendations in. And in a slightly related matter, we're also looking for a new silviculturist on the team, because the one with whom we started, he has another position now and doesn't have time. So let me get, are you guys seeing that timer? Ay, ay, ay.
We are.
That is more than faintly annoying. Okay.
But do you want to, excuse me, do you want to finish your point there, Sean? We do have a couple of questions in the
Good.
chat for you.
I like questions. Okay. And as far as the big question, I'm shaking my head like probably not, but we really got to show it. So additional work is needed to generalize these findings and characterize the effects or lack thereof of such treatments on downstream flows. There will be some effects, but when I say economically useful and deterministic effects, so this is Lassen Peak. And do you have any questions?
Thanks so much. Let's see. So do have a question from Kurt. How long after treatment do you see the difference go back to not statistically different, parenthetically due to brush, seedlings, etc.?
So is the
Kurt, do you mind opening your mic?
Yeah, would you mind? Whomever that is. I'm not quite following. So when did we start seeing a statistically significant difference after thinning? Is that the question?
Yep. Your soil moisture, when does it?
Kurt.
Really see the difference.
Kurt Sable. I should have known. Neighboring forest, always a pain. You'd have to look at the manuscript. I mean, the seedlings took a couple years to start using water, and the roots took a couple years to grow and But yeah, I have to refer you to the manuscript.
Okay. Skylar asks, what species of tree? It was just a
Mm.
couple of minutes ago, so I'm not exactly sure where you were in the presentation.
So, you know, the mix on this site is probably 80% white fir. We're trying to get it down to something, more historical. And there's a lot of problems with white fir. But we put the sap flow sensors on ponderosa pine trees. And we did the dendrochronology series it also in ponderosa pines. What we planted were, unsurprisingly, ponderosa pines with some not logical, with some Jeffreys thrown in to try to have some species diversity for bark beetle kill or to avoid bark beetle kill.
Mhm. Okay. Well, okay, we have quite a few more questions popped up. Don't know if you'll get to all of them in 4 minutes, but one question from David is, can you share a copy of your paper? And if you
Absolutely.
can, okay, if you would like to just send that to GMTO, we can get that out when we send the video recording of your presentation. Let's see, William asks, were herbicides used in seed cut?
In region 5, it's very rare for us to use herbicides because our frequent litigants don't like them.
Okay. And let's see, two more questions from Cody. Did you observe any differences in summer overland flow or sediment transport in the 3 treatments?
That is an excellent question. Overland flow does not exist, essentially. These are very coarse volcanic sandy loams. Almost everything infiltrates. In an extreme downpour, we'll see a bit of overland flow.
Okay. Zygmunt asks, Sean, did you look at opening size based on tree height, current site potential, rather than a standard unit of measure, 1 hectare or whatever the gaps were?
That's a good question.
He also said thanks and a nice job.
Oh, thank you. So when they did the forestry prescriptions here, it's they when they would mark they actually went and marked the center of these seed cuts when they did all the forestry preparation, and then those were sort of expanded for various ways that I won't bore you all with that I don't really even know because I'm not a forester. So they didn't cut it for us. They cut it, and then we came snooping along trying to do some science. So the openings were the size they were. And, we're excited about the smaller openings along the line.
Okay, let's see. Connor and Skylar added to his question: were you able to determine how far downslope of treatments the increase in soil moisture persisted? And someone said, or too high up.
Well, if you're not used to these cascades, extrusive volcanics, it's kind of hard to get your mind around that, but there is basically no downslope water movement. It basically goes straight down in the profile.
Okay. Okay. Well, that is about all the time we have for questions. You can always reach out to Sean through the global email. GMTO absolutely thanks all of you for participating. Sabrina Cord is our training specialist. Mark Nelson is our training coordinator. The team as a whole, we thank you for your presence and participation. The streams link for today's presentation will be included in the calendar invite for next week's program with Dr. Louise Hose discussing the unique underground realms of the Humboldt-Toyabe National Forest. As well, those of you who are outside the agency, we have a link available through your liaison to get that streams link to you. And if you have sent me a request to be added to our GMTO link, our distribution list, you will be added today. You will see your name added when you get the new advertisement. You won't have a forward. So that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for attending. We will see you all next week.
Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Now I'm
Sean.
gonna look at the comments.
Perfect.